So red flag number one is you've got people who love you, who admire you, who work with you, and who you trust are telling you there's something that you have to do different. You know, some of the most successful people, or the people that we look at and say they're really successful, they have coaches. It's not like one day you wake up 7 years later after you've been thinking about this and say, hey, surprise, you're my next leader. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. Hey guys, before we get started today, we just want to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors, TraffTrack. If your traffic control, construction, or security crews are still juggling manual check-ins, scheduling, and resource deployment, you're leaving productivity on the table. TraffTrack's app automates shift assignments and timesheets in seconds. Visit trafftrack.com to see why over 1,000 industry professionals rely on it every day. And thanks again to TraffTrack for supporting The Business Game.
Hello and welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. I'm Lisa DeAngelis.
And I'm Steve Plummer.
And before we get started today, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. So today we are joined by Ryan Kauth, a business coach. Hi, Ryan. How are you going?
Good. Things are going well here. How are you?
Lovely. Yeah, we're very well. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. So
Thanks for having me
yourself. Oh, anytime. Thanks. Introduce yourself for us, Ryan. Tell us who you are. What do you do?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Kauth. I call myself kind of a human first business coach. I think when you throw business coach out there, people think kind of all I do is talk about business stuff and try to improve business. And that's part of what I do, but really I'm there for serial founders and multi-generational family business owners. And we work on a lot of kind of non-business stuff that makes their business better. Mm-hmm. I'm located in the upper Midwest, U.S. My background is obviously in coaching, but I've also had stints as in such roles as your friendly neighborhood business banker, lender, and I've done some teaching at university levels, which I find incredibly fun. So,
oh, awesome. Yeah, lovely. So how did you, obviously then you've got a background in a few different places, but from going right back to the beginning, so we know you're in Wisconsin. What was your childhood upbringing like? How did your environment that you grew up in shape the leader and the coach that you are today? And I guess especially in handling both business success and also personal reset.
Yeah, I mean, the business stuff kind of came along later. Mm-hmm. I was kind of a problem-solving kid. I know that sounds kind of strange, but I approached things to solve problems, which was great for a lot of things, like doing well in school, and was not so good at things like, you know, being married in the first year, me trying to fix everything. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So going back to the beginning, I grew up in a smaller town, smaller area. My dad was in the service, so I was actually born on the Army base, which I like to talk about because not many people can say that. Mm-hmm. But the place where I grew up, which had Lake Michigan to my east, then I grew up with a terrible sense of direction because if a giant body of water was not due east to me, I could not tell directions without a map app right now.
Right. Yeah.
But really, I had great teachers and great coaches and good families around me and things like that, including my own. And so that coaching part was kind of what I was drawn to as a kid, and it kind of started where I was not a great athlete, but I would go out for a sport, and I would have once in a while I'd have a good coach, and that coach would kind of pull that competency out of me, just that one part, right? So basketball, I was pretty good at defense and I knew all the plays. Now, I couldn't really shoot the basket and make points, which is kind of the point of basketball, but I could do all that other stuff. And so he saw that, and that kind of allowed me to go, well, there are different roles on different teams and things like that. So, um, in the U.S., the NBA is pretty big, and so when I was a kid, the really good teams were like the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. That was kind of the rival team. But looking at teams like that and the different roles on those teams, I kind of grew up as a kid being kind of the role player on the sports team or the role player in the band or the role player in the theater production and things like that. And so it was great because I knew what I was good at and I was able to do those things, but I was never, the star player or, things like that. It's kind of like I knew my role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so those kind of experiences, I think, really is what kind of shaped me into the coach that I am. And in addition, I got to kind of steal and learn from all these other good coaches that I've had,
Mm-hmm.
really from elementary school through college.
Yeah, right. So kind of a natural progression for you. It seems like
Yeah.
not a learned skill, certainly something that was innate that you've been able to tap into throughout your life.
Yeah, and again, just having good coaches and good role models
Mm-hmm.
for things like that is really what kind of drew me to that type of thing. And then when I was an assistant coach once for um, some younger kids with basketball, so I got to a level in high school where I didn't make the basketball team anymore, and so I had a friend of my dad's who was coaching like a elementary school basketball team and said, "Hey, why don't you be my assistant coach?" And I'm like, "This is awesome! I get to be an assistant coach." So the first year, we won one game, and the boys would have fist fights on the court. Like it
Oh,
was
gosh.
that bad.
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm like, what? And I'm like, what am I doing here as somebody in high school? The next year, same group, same coaches, we won the league.
Wow, no way. What was
Yeah.
the secret to that? What do you think
The
did it?
secret was, it took more than a season
Yeah,
to get
right.
these guys to work together
Yeah,
as a team. I mean, that first season, it was awful. I mean, they weren't a team at all.
yeah.
When we won that one game, which was actually in like the season end tournament. So we went into this tournament winning no games, right? We lost the first one, won the second one, lost the next one. But I think that one win showed the guys that, we did some things right in this game as a team. Obviously, we were not the best. We didn't have the best players, but we had a pretty good team that, was doing some of the things right. And so when those boys saw that and then they came back the next year, I think that they remembered that. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like two completely different teams.
Isn't it interesting how it's the same at every level?
Yeah.
It's the same for,
Yeah.
children
Mm-hmm.
playing basketball, and it's the same for
Yeah.
major corporations too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really
Yeah.
interesting, Ryan, that the coaching thing is in your DNA pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's just unpack that a little bit. So looking back, what are some of the standout moments or turning points in your coaching career that you consider to be, I guess, your biggest highlights so far, and what made them so pivotal?
Yeah. I think that first kind of coaching experience taught me and allowed me to kind of implement what I already learned from some other coaches, which was, again, there's these different roles, different people have different talents, different abilities. And so let's put them in a place where they can thrive. And it doesn't mean everybody can score 20 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
You've got those players, but you also have these other ones that do other things that are important to the team. And so figuring out who on the team does this well, who likes to do these things, that was the other part because of course everybody wants to be the star player. And it's hard to get to that point where you have them realize that they're not, but they're still valuable
Mm-hmm.
as part of the team,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because basketball's 5-on-5, it's not 5-on-1.
Right. Yeah, right.
So, just as an example. So learning those roles and saying, hey, look, you're really good at this part, and telling them that and having them realize that. And at first, of course, they're not going to believe you. but then putting them in places where they can succeed and then grow a little bit, try something else. Um, Practice makes perfect for sure. But experiences like that, there was that same coach that I had in middle school was doing a high school basketball camp. And again, I didn't make the high school team, but he had me, I was the only non-high school player at this basketball camp working at this basketball camp. And I was kind of like, why is my coach having me do this stuff? Right. But when we would do drills, I would still beat some of the basketball players at the drills because I knew how to do the drill. And then he would give me a team to coach, and we would beat the other teams coached by like the high school players who were on the team. And so again, it was because I learned from him how to spot the abilities and the talents, put them into successful places so that the whole team works. And so that's pretty valuable when it comes to helping family businesses and things like that today.
Is there anything else that stands out of, man, that was a special moment for me, or that time with that coach, or is there something that because in business we always look forward, right? They've got goals and all those sorts of things. We don't often look back, so it's often interesting to take a moment to look back. And so, was there a special person that stood out, or a special thing that you tried differently and then you went, man, that was really good?
Yeah, I think another one, kind of like my basketball coach, was when I was in college, and my one of my advisors. Actually, I had really good advisors in college. I know some people think that that's not really a thing, or is not that valuable, but I had really good ones. And one of them put me on the track that I'm kind of on now, but the other one, allowed me to shadow her and then teach a class.
Wow.
And if you have to teach a class off of someone else's notes, that is way harder to do than to come in and teach a class off of what and how you would teach it. And so, as scared as I was to do that, I did it. And that and that taught me a couple of things. One is, I got to keep learning from people that know more than me, experts, things like that. And so, even today, I've hired numerous coaches for myself. But the other thing it taught me was, again, give somebody a chance to do something that is probably going to scare them to death, but it's going to be good for them. Even if it might be more time consuming for you.
Yeah, absolutely. How did it happen, that sort of pivot into specifically family business owners, the sort of generational?
Kind of a number of things kind of happening at once. One was, again, in a role where I was financing businesses. I had a number of family businesses as clients, and really it was kind of learning from them. And hearing all these statistics like, the second generation, of a family business has this much less success. And then the third generation either kills it or the fourth one does, right? That kind of a thing. But some of them weren't like that. And so I was kind of learning from them is, how did you do these things? What do you have in place? That you're successful while the statistics say, right, something else. And so one is kind of learning from people that knew what they were doing and how they were doing it. At the same time, there was an organization that I was researching where it was a bunch of family businesses getting together, almost like peer groups, and then having different subgroups within that organization. So they would do things like, we're going to have classes for the next generation of leaders in family businesses. We're going to have a peer group for CEOs who are non-family business CEOs. And so again, learning from that organization and all the research that went into that was kind of number two. Number three was, in that same kind of role, financing businesses, there were a lot of family businesses that were selling to non-family business members because they didn't have a next generation.
Right.
And not one of those businesses who sold their business to someone who wasn't the next generation was happy about that. In fact, most of the time we would be not talking about the finance stuff. It was about the regret that they had in not bringing somebody up to say take over the business, that
Right.
kind of a thing. And it's like, no, my two kids, they want nothing to do with this business, or something along those lines. And it's just kind of like, what would you do differently, right? And having these kind of really hard conversations and listening to these, listening to these regrets and listening to these I should haves and I should, um, those things really shaped me starting to work with family businesses, not just on the financing end, but going more into the trusted advisor end in, okay, if you do want to establish a next generation, what does that look like? And so that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, right. What sort of steps in that case, if you are sort of trying to invest in the next or the next generation of your business within a family structure, what are the sort of steps that you would recommend to set up, the governance and structure so that those pieces don't become afterthoughts?
Yeah, and again, a lot of the stuff I say is very simple. It's just not easy to do.
Right.
One is you have to be intentional about it. And being intentional about it is a two-way street. It means you have to communicate with the people who you're looking at as the next leaders. It's not like one day you wake up 7 years later after you've been thinking about this and say, "Hey, surprise, you're my next leader." It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's getting there early and having conversations about, okay, what do you think the next leader of your company should have, especially someone who is a family member? Should they have a formal education? Should they be an intern here? Should they have started at the bottom and worked their way up? Should they go to college, go work somewhere else, and then they can come here? So, and you've heard about all these different things that different family businesses do, but really having conversations about what does this look like? And then what kind of support do they need? I mean, after they do those things, that can't be it.
Right.
There was one company I worked with, which we kind of put together like a junior management leadership rotation in their company, just like some corporations do for undergraduates or MBA students who graduate, come into their company, learn how the company works for, say, 18 months, rotating through different departments. And so we did that in one of the companies. The number one thing I hear from the kids is, I need more time with my mom. I need more time with my dad. I need more time with my uncle. And so once in a while, I'll hear from that mom, dad, uncle, that current leader of, well, I'm not really a coach, or I'm not really a teacher. Like, you don't need to be a coach or a teacher. You don't even need to be a mentor. Just having them around so they can ask you questions. Most people, if you ask them, personal questions about, hey, tell me about how you started your business. One, they very seldom get that question.
Right.
And two, of course, they're going to tell you something about it. Right. Yeah. And so I've even worked with next generation family business leaders about what kind of questions you should ask, in these situations. So, if there's not something formal set up, let's make sure that you have a path. And part of that path is, talking to, some of these leaders and some of these roles that you're going to have.
Yeah, right.
One of the things you work with founders and serial founders is this idea of a founder reset.
Yeah.
And let's dive into that a little bit, because, we're talking about highly successful, intelligent, hardworking people that get into a situation that, we say they need a reset.
Yeah.
kind of why can't they work themselves out of that because they're intelligent, hardworking, highly resourceful? Why do they need someone to reflect something or help them get out of that state that they're in?
Yeah. I mean, we could certainly have a conversation about just coaching in general and how maybe it's not all that valued, but um, let's talk about something more positive. Like serial founders tend to work something really hard for what we would consider a short amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
3 to 5 years. And then for whatever reason, they sell the company, close the company, go on to something else. And some of that is they're bored. Some of that is their skill set has topped off and um, they don't want to learn how to be the CEO of a larger company. So there's lots of different reasons why they stop and then they go on to their next thing and take the same bad habits inside and outside the
Right.
business along with them,
Mm-hmm.
thinking this is going to be better. So typically, when I find there's a serial founder who is maybe second, third, fourth business, um, they've done a few businesses already,
Right.
started them, bought them, turned them around, something fairly remarkable that most people don't do. But what they start thinking after that second, third, or fourth business is, I'm going to do this next one differently. I'm not going to make the same mistakes that I did. And so I'm going to do some things, differently. But they never sit there and reflect and say, okay, what am I going to do differently?
Right. Yeah.
They end up not doing anything differently. And then as customers change and technology changes, they also don't tend to keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So as customers demand different things in different ways and technology changes, and they're not keeping up with that, again, the same business problems tend to creep in. And if they can sell the company before something doesn't go well, they'll do that. But often what happens is they realize that as they grow older, their priorities change. And by the way, when we all grow older, that's typically what happens, right? Our priorities change for whatever reason. And when they do that, while they say their priorities are changing, they're not doing anything to align their changing priorities with what they're currently doing. And so that's the reset. The reset is it is time for you to stop doing what you're doing, look at what your priorities actually are. And by the way, they know what they are typically, but their actions, their calendar, their relationships are not aligned with what they say their priorities are.
Right. Do you generally find that the founders that you work with, especially in those serial founder cases, do you generally find that I mean, obviously they've called you in by the time you get there, but do you typically find that they're receptive to the process? Do you get a lot of pushback?
Oh, I get tons of pushback.
My whole life is pushback. Yeah, right. Okay.
I mean, it is. Yeah. I mean, just because somebody is in the valley of, their business life doesn't mean that they're not going to keep trying doing what they have been doing, which hasn't been working.
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, part of the process in the beginning is really helping them understand that if they keep doing what they've been currently doing, it's not going to get them anywhere. It's just going to get them in worse places, like losing their business or losing their family or losing key employees or losing their leadership team, maybe losing the trust of their community. So those things tend to be pretty jarring. Unfortunately, a few of those things might have to start happening for them really to realize, okay, this actually is bad.
Right.
This is actually not what I want. This is not what I started this third company, to do. When I started this third company, I said I was gonna do these things, and I'm just not.
Ryan, just on that, why can't they see that? Is it a case that all of us human beings, we're too close to everything that we do, that we can't see the wood for the trees? Because again, I go back to the intelligent, resourceful, hardworking. Why can't I see that I'm repeating the same patterns? Why can't I see that I've got to do something different? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, the best athletes in the world have coaches, and the best athletes in the world change coaches when they're not getting better. I follow tennis, and so you will see every now and then, someone who's a top 10 tennis athlete changing coaches. Well, why is that? Right? They're not getting better. They finally realize that they're not getting better. There have been tennis pros, again, top 10 tennis pros who have gone back to their old coach, right? Because when they switched, it wasn't working for them. So, top people in their fields often hire coaches. I've hired numerous coaches. I hired one twice. So, and, when they're telling me things, it's a lot of the same things I tell, people that I'm coaching as well. And so sometimes, you're just too close. I also refer to other coaches. So for example, if there's a family business, current generation of owners who is looking at the next generation, and they're really kind of curious, like, what are their leadership styles and sets and skills and things like that. I refer to like an executive coach that can take them through some leadership assessments and things like that. So there are different scenarios, obviously, but I still say that, coaching is not something where you just have them help you crawl out of the valley with you. It's there are some people that value coaching, that even when they're at the top of their game, they still have a coach because they need to be accountable to somebody. They need somebody who has other ideas. They also need somebody to tell them once in a while, you are really good at this. And if you want to get better, right, here are some things that you need to do. Here are some things that you need to prioritize. Sometimes coaches are there to not just help you align your priorities, because like I said, most serial founders I talk to know what their priorities are. The hard thing is executing on what those priorities are. Because again, it's really easy to take your fifth priority and concentrate on that for weeks at a time and completely lose priorities 1 through 4, because maybe priorities 1 through 4 are a little bit hard. Maybe it's not what you're good at.
Right.
And you're good at priority 5, which is sales for your company or something like that.
Yeah, right. And what do you think are there consistent early red flags, for anybody who is a business owner, coaching a team, leading a team? What are the consistent red flags that you come across for founders or within companies, I suppose?
It's a good question, Rob, because someone sitting here listening to this, might go, oh, am I like that or not?
No, I think I'm fine.
And you go, well, you're this, and this.
What are they? What are the red flags, like personal life or business, that can sort of both, that people can spot before they hit the valley.
And I guess what we're saying is if someone's sitting down in front of you, you go, oh man, you tick all the boxes, and I can help you.
I am here at exactly the right time.
Yeah, I would say 4 out of 5 times what I hear from somebody who calls me is somebody told me this, right?
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, spouse or significant other, somebody on their leadership team that they really trust. In fact, they actually look up to, even though they're a direct report. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones. Once in a while, I will have a serial founder, family business owner who is in a peer group, which, by the way, I'm a big advocate of peer groups, is in a peer group and somebody in their peer group pulls them aside and says, you've been talking about this thing for so long. It's about time you do something about this.
Right.
So red flag number one is you've got people who love you, who admire you, who work with you, and who you trust are telling you there's something that you have to do different.
Mm-hmm.
That's typically like red flag number one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's typically not just one person.
Right.
It's typically, more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, who that person is really depends on who are your close friends, who are your close loved ones, who are the people that you trust, who are the people that you have given permission to kind of speak into your life and say, hey, look, if I'm ever going off the deep end, I kind of expect you to tell me that I am.
Right. Yep.
And not a lot of people have people like that who they've given permission to say, come and talk to me about that if,
Mm-hmm.
If you do. And so like the coach that I've hired twice, who is now a good friend of mine, I call him my mentor. He's one of those guys for me. So if I'm ever talking about something, and his name is JD, and JD would tell me something, I know he's right and he's listening to me. But it took me to hire him twice for me to realize, no, this guy actually cares about me.
Right. Yep.
Not just because I'm giving him money.
Yeah.
And he's right, and he has been right. And so if he's telling me something, I better listen. So that's really red flag number one. It's really hard. Any of these other red flags, it is really hard for anybody in a rut, in a valley, even though they're feeling like the lowest of low. It's really hard for somebody to recognize a red flag for themselves.
Yeah.
And so I typically don't talk about red flags and triggers just because it's very few and far between that I get a call from someone who, again, is in this terrible valley. And they said, hey, I thought of this by myself to give you a call. It typically doesn't. It typically doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Right. Now, on occasion, that 1 out of 5 is somebody who has heard me on a podcast talking about something, and it just like it hit them.
Right.
Yep, that's me. But again, I don't necessarily call that a red flag.
Right.
That is somebody who's kind of realized it on their own. Now, I can tell you this too, though, is after I've talked to them for a while, their spouse or significant other has typically been somebody who has said something to them on a number of occasions, but they just haven't listened to them.
Right. And then they eventually hear it coming from a third party somewhere and go, oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I think it's so much harder to take
somebody you don't know like me who's talking on a podcast or something. And exactly.
Isn't that always the way though? I think that's the nature of it, which is what makes your job, especially with the working with families or intergenerational businesses, so interesting. Is that I think a lot of the time the roles that we are used to playing within our family, or that we expect our family members to play, or the people we love, or the people really close to us, it almost I think can give us permission to kind of ignore what they're saying. Oh, that's just that person has always been saying things like that to me, and I don't, know. And unfortunately, can't see the forest for the trees.
Hey guys, just a quick break to thank our affiliate partner, HubSpot. We are thrilled to announce our partnership with HubSpot, the ultimate all-in-one CRM platform. HubSpot helps you streamline marketing, sales, and customer service with powerful tools to grow your business faster. From lead generation to automations, it's got you covered. By using the link in the description, you not only get to start your HubSpot journey for free, but you'll also be supporting our work here on the show. Now it's back to today's episode. Yeah, another interesting one, and this might be a little bit controversial, and I'll ask you to reflect on this, Ron.
Yeah.
The role that ego or plays in resistance, or I'm successful, I'm resourceful, I'm really good. Where does that? Do you find that's an issue as well? And again, someone sitting here, is there a bit more humility that might be needed for people to take that leap to reach out? So where's humility, ego come into that?
Yeah, I mean, I it certainly has. There's certainly a role there, right? There's certainly an influence there, and I think the ego is what keeps people from listening or really taking to heart what people who care about them are saying. And again, it's not necessarily a, you know, again, they might be defensive about it for sure. But again, I kind of go back to, some of the most successful people or the people that we look at and say they're really successful. Um, they have coaches. They have people who speak into their life, right? Um, and so I don't know anyone who I look to say that person is successful who doesn't have somebody or more than one somebody who can do that. And so sometimes I think that ego, and this is why I like working with serial founders, by the way, is because they typically are kind of on an island and don't have those people,
Yeah.
or they don't think they do, when in reality, they actually do. Um, One that I've worked with has this awesome wife, but one of the other ones that speak into his life is one of his investors,
Right.
which is really kind of different,
Yeah.
where you would think this investor, obviously wants a return on their investment, but he is really good at kind of that executive coach type of questioning for this particular uh, serial founder. So sometimes it's people that you don't necessarily expect uh, are the ones that that can do that.
Yeah, right. And you work obviously with academic institutions, UW Green
Yeah.
Bay, and Columbia Business School. What sort of models and frameworks have you seen that work best, I guess, when you're teaching entrepreneurs about wealth and family legacy and sustainable growth, and moving towards all of those things with a healthy mindset?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do and teach certainly has the academic, rigor,
Mm-hmm.
per se. But I like to also teach some of these more personal, type of lessons, so that they get to know themselves as founders or future founders much better through that one semester of class than they had at the end of that class. And I think part of that is they're going to be doing a lot of things on the fly, but also with intention, such as how do I hire my first employee,
Mm-hmm.
right? What do I
Right.
actually look for? Um, Things like that that can be helpful, kind of no matter if you become a founder or not. Um, that that really help you grow as not just a business leader or business person, but just as a as a person in general. And so talking about a lot of personal growth type things, not just the academic stuff, right? That I might be teaching is typically kind of the approach that I take. And so there are actually coaching frameworks that I use. I love using the Eisenhower matrix. I don't think you can use that enough today. It's just basically understanding what's urgent and what's important, because what's important can get pretty murky. A lot of times we think important means urgent. And it's like, no, urgent and important are totally different things. Because if I would ask anyone, define what's important, there's almost always a time element
Mm-hmm.
ingrained in that, but that's not it at all. It's really, what are your priorities?
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
And so that's what we can mess up as we grow into our lives, as we get older and our priorities change. That important stuff is what can get kind of murky at times. And of course, what we say is important, and then what we actually do can be two very different things.
Yeah. Right.
Just on that, what we say and what we do. So operational discipline, routines, rituals.
Mm.
What have you found that consistently scale across the different founders and take them, out of the chaos? I'd love to hear some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, you've landed on a really important topic, which is kind of a routine and a discipline and things like that. So, as you're building a company, there are different people that are going to report to you, and there's different people that are going to come to you inside and outside your company. And how you prioritize your time is really important. And by the way, you need to make some time for yourself too, because you have decisions to make, and a lot of those decisions are pretty important. And so, if you're the kind of person that needs uh, quiet or needs to be by yourself to make those decisions, you need to carve that into your day. If you're the type of person that needs to surround yourself with your team to make decisions together, you need to plan for that too. And when COVID hit and some of us went into more remote positions and didn't really know how to do that, some people had to learn pretty quickly. And I can tell you that a lot of serial founders don't carve out time for themselves every day.
Right.
And a lot of serial founders don't carve out time for them and their team every day either. But they should be, as part of their routine, because that's actually how they make decisions.
Yeah.
And that's how they can be more proactive in growing their business, as opposed to just being reactive and putting out fires all the time.
Yeah. Right.
I'm really curious about that. Other than, well, you've got to take out more time for yourself every day. How do you help someone do that? How do you bring that shift into their world?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to take your 10 hours that you're at work and make sure that 8 hours of it is carved out for you.
Right.
But what you have to typically do is say, all right, what time do you get up? What time do you go home? Why are you going home? That's another interesting topic altogether.
Oh, yeah.
But let's say let's say you're waking up at 6 a.m. and you go home at 6 p.m. Okay. What part of the day do you have the most energy? What part of the day are your team members talking to you? What part of the day are you talking to people outside of your company, in your community, your partners, your vendors, things like that? And once you understand kind of those things that go on, kind of those industry norms, you can carve out those times with your team. Software companies, when they started doing scrums and meetings like that, or big retailers when they've got their morning meetings, right? Sometimes if you've been in a big retailer early in the morning, you might stumble across something like that. Manufacturing companies that have a meeting in the beginning of the shift. I know a company who about a year ago completely changed their shifts just so that the first shift could communicate with the second shift. And here's the interesting part. They're on the third generation of owners of that company, and they hadn't ever done that before.
Wow. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, so that company's been successful, right, for 3 generations, but this third generation just said, no, we need to change things here to make sure this happens. So it's the same thing with that serial founder, with those family business owners, is understanding what part of the day you are really good in, and then understanding what part of the day you need to be there for other people at work. And it takes time to learn what that is. So, for example, I was working with a company who's on the second generation. It was founded by a couple. They've got 2 adult children, and the younger one is a single parent. And their child was going to start school in the fall. And they were completely freaking out about, what is this going to look like? Because this is a new stage in life for me. I need to be at work But my son, I've got to take him to school, right? This is a
Yep.
brand new, right? So we had a plan. We tried the plan in August and September. It wasn't working. We tried something else, September, October. It was working a little bit better. It took until November for that routine to happen. And part of that too is their son.
Right. Yeah, right.
And having them be used to, what this looks like. So it doesn't always work right away. You've got to be patient with it. And again, as your priorities change, things are going to change, with that routine potentially too. Just today, I had a serial founder who texted me and saying, I'm having a problem with time management. And 2 weeks ago, we had talked about what that looked like. And what it came down to was, and this is interesting, by profession, he's a fitness coach. Guess what he was having problems fitting in to his time management?
His own fitness?
Exercise. Yep. His own fitness.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But now I've known this guy for about 6 years, right? Do you think he's going to tell me that in the first few weeks of working with him? Probably not.
Right.
Right. So, of course, I'm sitting there thinking, well, this is interesting, right? You're a fitness coach.
Yeah.
And so, called him up, talked him through it. Just texted him again before I came on here with you. Haven't gotten a response yet because I'm not sure. I don't know if it's working or not.
Right.
Hopefully he's out working out, right?
Hope maybe he's working out at this very moment. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And and what he said to me is I'm just not, I'm feeling like I'm not fitting it in. I'm feeling like I'm putting it off to the weekend. And my response was, of course, are you feeling like it, or is that actually what you're doing?
What you're doing,
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And he's just like, no, it's what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, let's figure it out.
Yeah,
so.
that time thing is a really interesting one. Across the family business landscape, Ryan, what's other than time, what's the hardest challenge you've seen being ignored by many founders until it almost becomes a crisis? What's going on out there?
Yeah. One of the really hard things is working in continuing education.
Right.
As part of your job.
Yeah. Okay.
People are kind of looking at it as this is something I do, like they treat it like it's night school, and then they don't fit it in. But in family businesses, it is incredibly important. That same family business I was talking about where the younger adult child, who's the single parent, the older child was in law school and left because one of her parents at the time had a huge health issue. She left law school to come back and work in the company while one of her parents was going through this, near terminal health issue. And that's still kind of with her today.
Right. Yeah.
Should I have finished law school? Right. And so what I said to her was, well, have you even looked into if you can finish law school? Do you want to finish law school? She looked into it and she decided, no, I don't want to finish law school. But here's what I do need, right? And we talked about, okay, what do you need to run this company someday? And they hadn't prioritized fitting that into her job. And so we worked through what that potentially looked like. And some of that was formal education. Some of that was getting involved with their state's industry association, which again came out in conversation. And then there was another piece that's more long-term for her and what she wanted to do and what she thought would be helpful. So again, that's one of the things I see that is not prioritized, is not intentional, and it's incredibly important because, again, one of those current generation owners could not wake up tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And what does that succession plan actually look like? Part of that succession plan, that leadership succession plan, that ownership succession plan, there has to be an educational component there somehow.
I wasn't expecting that.
No, yeah,
cash flow,
interesting.
time management, da da da. So
Yeah,
really
right.
interesting. Yeah.
No.
I also was curious from like a practical perspective for you, with obviously this as your business that you're coaching people. Obviously, you had somebody just text you, and I mean, what time is it for you at the moment? I think we're in the evening for you, right?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock
Okay.
by me.
So how do you structure things for yourself? Like, do you kind of work with, are you in the house for whoever you're working with for some period, or
Sure.
is it that they call you as they need you? Are they these long-term relationships, or does it vary?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. Typically with family businesses, when I'm starting out working with one, it's at least an 18-month kind of a start.
Right.
And again, that's just based on experience, how long it takes, 18 months, give or take, to put something together. And some of that is then getting into a routine. And the routine is typically meetings. And why are we having these meetings?
Right.
Nobody likes having meetings that just to have meetings, right? With, yeah, I think with serial founders, it can be a little different. Sometimes these resets take a few weeks, a few months. I worked with a serial founder for a number of months. And as crazy as this sounds, we started with a topic. And after several months, we came all the way back around to the same topic.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Because I had laid out, here's how this is probably going to work. And again, there's that pushback, like we were talking about earlier today. And he wanted to try some things kind of on his own, meaning he didn't really believe me. But I said, okay, let's explore. If you want to go this way, I'll go with you. Right. Well, again, we came kind of full circle to
we went that
the
way
issue.
And it was the wrong way.
here was the issue. Now, along the way, did we do some good things? Yes, we absolutely did.
Yeah.
And they're helping his business today. But at the heart of the issue was something that he had to work on and he really struggled with. And it took him several months to get there. And along the way, we did other things, that helped his business in place. And he did some things that got his business in a better place as well, made some decisions along the way and things like that. But again, sometimes it takes a while. And so in those initial conversations, we talk about what that potentially looks like. Some people don't want the exact help that I think they potentially need. And so those are people that I don't necessarily work with. So kind of going back to what you were talking about, like kind of for my own, say, routine, I certainly have times of the day where I'm not going to answer that text.
Yeah.
But like today was a little bit different where I started early. I stopped in the middle of the afternoon, grabbed lunch with somebody, did 2 errands, went to one of my child's sports activities, came back here to do this.
Yeah.
But I also knew, and that was just my schedule today.
Right.
That's not my schedule every day.
Yeah.
That's my schedule kind of in the fall season, like during this kind of sports season. But I tend to, again, for me, I'm better at prioritizing today than I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I would even tell you 15 years ago, I was terrible. But that's kind of how my day works. And it works for me. It works for my clients, but really it has to work for me first based on my priorities and what they are now, versus say what I would have told you they were and what I actually was doing, say 15 years ago.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right, last quick question, Ryan. Can we lean into your wisdom a little bit here? What's one book, podcast, speaker that you'd recommend for our audience to listen to, and why do you like it, and what did you get out of it?
Well, I would say this. I think it's really valuable for serial founders, entrepreneurs, family business owners to listen to podcasts like yours because the stories that you hear on podcasts like The Business Game humanize people. Because I think sometimes we think successful people are overnight successes. And it's not true at all. Right? Or somebody became an instant millionaire. Okay, maybe they won the lottery, but we all know what happens typically to people that win the lottery, right? They're not millionaires for very long. So understanding people's stories, I think, is really helpful. I love talking about stuff like that with university students because, quite frankly, the more stories they hear about other entrepreneurs, the more they understand that they can do it. It humanizes things. Nobody's perfect. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna fail at different things. And so I think, with podcasts the way they are today, where you can just pick one up and start listening to it, I think that's really valuable. Books wise, I really kind of like those basics, the Dale Carnegies. I really like kind of a more recent one, although it's probably a couple decades old now, is I really like Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone. I think that's a really good book when it comes to understanding that, this life is not about doing life on your own. And if you can involve other people, right, this is good. Thomas Stanley is somebody who I kind of consider like an academic hero of mine. He wrote a book called Networking with Millionaires. And in that book, it really talked about who millionaires actually are, which are probably your neighbors, not the people on TV. And really, and understanding that, people do different things different ways. Some of them are very disciplined, and that's how they get to be, say, a millionaire or successful. Some people take advantage of opportunities that they see, or they're in the right place at the right time for. But there's no overnight successes. And so I think the more stories you can hear from different people, like guests on your podcast, I think that's the best way to go.
That's the right answer. Business Game Podcast is the right answer.
Quick product placement right there. Unintentional product placement.
But picking up a book now and then because you want to read from thought leaders. Right? People that have different ideas that you do. That's another one I would say too, is listen to people that maybe you don't agree with. Right? Politically or what have you. That's typically where we kind of always go, who don't I agree with? And you pick politics probably first. But listen to people who you don't agree with. Listen to people who you think are thought leaders in your industry. And by the way, if you own a business, typically you're a thought leader in your industry. You probably don't know it, or you don't consider yourself that, but you probably are. You might even be a thought leader in your community. And so understanding that, thought leaders are people just like you and I. And again, hearing different stories, learning different things. And again, if you're not a reader, I mean, there's so many audiobooks out there now that you can listen to on the go as you're driving, as you're exercising, things like that.
It's actually something that I think we hear a lot, that the course, the main seed, I think that everything tends to boil down to from all of the guests that we speak to is fundamentally communication. Other people out there have across all business, how you get better at things, how you problem solve, communication, listen to other people, involve other people. And it seems like we were actually having a chat about it yesterday, Steve and I, off mic, that it seems like you go, well, have a conversation. It seems really clear, but it's so interesting that it's actually not the most obvious thing that happens.
It's almost like in the busyness of life, we forget our humanity. And our humanity is that connection and the story that connects all of us, right? So, it's a really good point.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us. It's
This
been an
was great.
absolute
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Anytime. It's been a blast. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on The Business Game. Ryan Kauth, everybody. We'll see you next time.
To help support our continued mission to provide free, best-in-class advice from the world's most compelling business leaders, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. See you next Saturday. Thanks for tuning into The Business Game. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected. A big thank you to our major sponsor, TraffTrack, for powering today's episode. And join us again on the next episode of The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle.